Thank you for joining us on the discussion regarding the VOCA Victims of Crime Act funding reductions. This presentation is being recorded so that it can be made available on our website. Please keep that in mind and keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question. You can also ask questions in the chat, so if you can find that chat button, that would be great. And please make sure that you're muted. As a reminder, the Crime Victims Fund is a source of funding for VOCA. Millions of dollars are deposited into this fund annually from criminal fines, forfeited bail bonds, penalties, and special assessments collected by U.S. attorneys' offices, federal U.S. courts, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. To date, the Crime Victims Fund dollars have always come from offenders convicted of federal crimes, not from taxpayers. Recently, the Crime Victims Fund has experienced shortfalls in deposits, which has caused VOCA funding to decrease. Last year, the president passed VOCA Fix with the hope that the states would feel the positive impact quickly. Unfortunately, this has not impacted as much as we'd hoped, as quickly as we'd hoped it would. That doesn't mean it isn't working. We're seeing improvements, just not as quickly as we would like. We're only seeing deposits that were made through October 2022 and prior, so we still have 2 more months of deposits to go into the fund before we'll be notified of the funding allocation amount from OVC. We expect to receive this information in the spring. This is the information that can be found on ovc.ojp.gov regarding the Crime Victim Fund information. While you can see that the deposits are increasing, we are still not where we were prior to fiscal year 2018. We're currently utilizing funds for VOCA for our subrecipients that were awarded in fiscal year 2020. What does this mean for you? It means that the total amount that we have available to award this fiscal year is $13 million. While we have requested ARPA funding to help supplement VOCA for this year and for the next, we won't know if we will receive any of that until May of 2023. At that time, we will notify all subrecipients on any planned changes moving forward. Without the ARPA funding, we are looking at $13 million to award in state fiscal year 24, which is what's coming up, and approximately $10 million to award in state fiscal year 25. We'll be able to plan better for state fiscal year 25 after the spring, when we know what the ARPA decision is and what the Crime Victim Fund looks like. Regardless of these cuts, the federal mandate for VOCA requires Nevada to allocate at least 10% of each year's VOCA grant to victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and underserved populations. VOCA funding priority is given to these programs. It is DCFS's goal to allocate funding further by population. According to the most recent needs assessment done in 2022 that we sent out to your agency, these are the funding allocations by region for state fiscal year 24. Due to declining funds, the cost for the travel training category, equipment category, contractual category, or any funding increase requests must have exceptional justification and cost allocation must be provided to be considered. We're working on releasing the VOCA NOFO or the Notice of Funding Opportunity now and have updated it quite a bit from the past funding years. Please remember to review the funding opportunity in detail as things have changed. Collaborative efforts are highly encouraged with applicants. At this time, we have posted our contact information if you have any questions. We also open the floor up to y'all. If you have any questions or if you have questions that you would like to put into the chat, go ahead and unmute yourself and either ask the question or submit it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you guys have any questions?
Hi, this is Christy at SafeNest. I do have one question.
Okay.
Is there anything you recommend we do as agencies, speak to legislators, write a letter to the state governor's office, or anything that you suggest we can do to help push through or get the ARPA funds approved?
Yeah, and I think it's also about just like you said, just the
I'm
basic
gonna pause
awareness and
just one
education around
second.
what
I
red
don't know
flags to
who
look
is
for,
talking,
because
but
there's some things that are just a normal part of
please go
growing up
ahead and
and
hit the
being a
mute button.
teenager and wanting to explore, right? And then there's red flags.
I'm sorry, I had to mute everybody. If you're gonna if you have a question, you're gonna have to ask it in the chat box. So Christy, as far as your question, is there anything that the agencies can do? You're more than welcome to reach out to legislature or whatever. I can't tell you to do anything. That is not where my scope is. But if you feel pulled to reach out to anybody, you are more than welcome to do what you feel is necessary. It can't be paid for by VOCA funding or any federal funding, and I can't encourage you, but that is completely up to you and your agency what you'd like to do as far as reaching out to anybody for those types of discussions. Alyssa had a question. Please review the areas. Hold on one second. Come on. Please review the areas of the budget that require exceptional justification. That would be any requests for funding increases from this fiscal year to next. It would be anything that's in your travel or training category, anything that's in your equipment category, or anything that's in your contractual category. When will this recording be available to watch on the website? I'm going to do my very best to get this posted by tomorrow, hopefully no later than the end of this week. I will send out an email to all subrecipients letting you know that it is posted. What is the percent of the cut? It's $5 million from this year to next year. I believe that's about 30%. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head. I apologize, but it is $5 million. What is the total fiscal year 23 VOCA allocation compared to the 13 million projected for 24? So state fiscal year 23, we awarded $18 million, which included ARPA funding. State fiscal year 24, we're going to award $13 million, which is a total of $5 million cut. And then we had a question, typo above, please review the areas of the budget that require exceptional justification. I believe I answered your question, but just in case it wasn't clear, it's your travel and training. So any type of training or travel for your staff, any equipment that you're going to want to purchase, and anything that goes into contractual. And anybody that requests additional funding from what you've received this year, you're going to need to have exceptional justification for that ask. And there was, are these funds going to be cut straight across the board, including at the state level? Yeah, the funds are cut from the federal level. We're all going to be cut. So this is impacting everybody, not just our subrecipients. In the past few years, we've been able to extend our current VOCA grants past June. Is this an option for 2023? Yes, all agencies are able to extend their current VOCA grants to the end of September. Those extensions and amendments are due no later than April 30th or the last Friday in April. We had a question, do you need exceptional justification for any expense in those categories or just if they're increasing? For those particular categories, it's going to be exceptional justification for any expense. We've made a decision at DCFS to strictly fund direct service to victims with our funding cuts. So if you're going to have things in those particular categories, they're are not normally something that is considered direct services to victims. So what the recommendation is for when you want to apply for those. It's not discouraged to apply for that. So let's say you want, to put something in your travel or training. You just have to show that how that impacts your direct client services, how you can't operate without it, and really provide good justification as to why you need that training to provide that direct client service and why you can't get that funding from somewhere else to pay for it. We had a question, will each agency be cut at the same percentage? Probably not. I can't tell you that at this point. It depends a lot on what is asked, what we have available, what is in which agency applies from which county. We have strict rules we have to follow on how we do our funding allocations. 10% has to go to each of those funding priorities. And then the funding allocation, let me pull that back up so you guys can see that, has to be allocated by region. So that's that funding allocation by region. So there's a lot of factors that are dependent upon that answer, and I can't honestly give you a straight answer as to if we're going to cut at the same percentage for all agencies. That's not something that we can predict at this time. And then another question was along the same vein, are all subrecipients going to be cut the same percentage, or are less subrecipients going to be funded? Again, all of that is consistent upon applications, who applies from what county, what funding category people are applying for. We have strict guidelines we have to follow. So it really is determined upon what applications we receive. You guys are fine. Yes, here are the funding categories. When is the NOFO going to be released? It is currently in with my administration for review. As soon as I get the approval from them, we will make it ADA compliant and post it. My goal is to get it posted by next Wednesday. It has to be posted at least no later than the 1st of January. It will be due at least January 31st. You guys have any further questions? Anything else that you'd like me to clarify? I'm not understanding your question. It says RE, the percentage for victimization. So if you could clarify that question, that'd be great.
Can I use my microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry, I just, I'm trying to remember. I don't know that the NOFO asks you to indicate which one specifically. So like, for example, we serve underserved and domestic violence. So would we be able to get a cut of each portion of that? Or if we primarily serve domestic violence, would we just be in that bucket?
So what we normally do is separate out each funding category based on what the information is that you provide on your application. There will be a section where you can separate it out into percentages if you so choose. If your agency, does like 95% for child abuse and like 5% everything else, it doesn't really make sense to put the categories into 5% of everything else when you could just go 100% towards child abuse. We have to do 10% of that $13 million to each one of those categories. So that's $1.3 million to domestic violence, 1.3 to sexual assault, 1.3 to child abuse, and 1.3 to underserved. That means the rest of the funds either can go to any of those categories or to, other victim service populations that are applied for, but at least 10% has to go to each one of those categories. It's entirely up to each agency how you want to divvy out your percentage and how your percentage works with your organization, there will be an opportunity on the NOFO to put that information. The NOFO has changed quite a bit from the last few years, so I would highly encourage that when it is released, you guys take ample opportunity to review that and see the new questions and how things are being asked this year.
And
Um,
I'm sorry, do you mind if I just follow up with what's the reasoning for the change in the NOFO? Is that
Because of-
federal?
It's because of funding cuts and federal guidance.
Okay, thank you.
When will the VOCA paperwork drop, or has it already and I missed it? I believe you're asking for the VOCA NOFO. I'm working on getting that posted as quickly as possible. Like I said, my goal is to get that posted Wednesday, the 21st. I will send out an email to everyone once it does get posted. We will get it posted just as quickly as I get it approved to post. Do you have any recommendations on how to link travel and training to direct services? Is there certain language you are all looking for? There's not certain language that we're looking for. That is completely up to your organization. I can't really answer that without prejudice. So that is unfortunately a question that you're going to have to answer internally with your organization if you choose to have travel and training. Just as a caveat, the travel and training won't include mileage that is for client services, because we do know that in the state of Nevada, we have a lot of rural and frontier areas. So there is a lot of driving and mileage that is associated with client services. So that is the only exception to the needing exemplary information on those particular services. We had a question, if our programs included 3 of these percentages, will that increase our chances? Not necessarily. We just have to make sure that 10% of all of our funding gets allocated to each of those categories. When will the awards be announced? We're tentatively planning on awards being announced in March, I believe. What are approved underserved populations? I can better answer that when we have the VOCA NOFO discussion. Today, we just really wanted to focus on the funding cuts and make sure that people are aware of what those cuts are going to look like. Do we have any other questions? Did I miss any of the questions that were asked?
I think, Jean, if you don't mind, just one more clarifying question from me. So it's 10 or 13 million for FY24, and then you're projecting 20 or 10 million for FY25.
That is correct. We're hoping that it will be more than the 10 million, but at this time, with what we have available and confirmed in funding, we're looking at 10 million for next fiscal year. We'll be able to update everybody on probably our 3rd quarter VOCA call on the numbers and if that changes for state fiscal year 25. It's always been my goal to be as transparent and open with you guys as I can possibly be. So that's why we wanted to kind of have this discussion and have this opportunity for you guys to really understand where we're coming from and make sure that you're aware of these funding cuts and kind of what our expectations are and what we're doing to try to help with those.
Jean, I'm sorry, one more question from me. I don't know that I've seen a breakout of all of the funded VOCA recipients by region. Is that something you can provide?
I will have to check with my administration. It's not something we've provided in the past few years, but I will check with them, and if we can post that, I will.
I think it'll help us be a little more realistic on what we should be getting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can definitely see where you're coming from on that, and I will follow up with that question, Alyssa, and get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are welcome for the transparency. I hope we've given you enough time to plan. We have tried talking about VOCA funding cuts for a while now to try to keep it on your radar for sustainability. Please let me know if you guys have any further questions. I will put our contact information back up on the screen. So if you guys have further questions, you can reach out to myself, my manager, Andrea. If you have general grants questions, you can reach out to Christine or Tracy. But really, if you have funding questions, I would reach out to either myself or Andrea. We'll leave the chat open for another few minutes if you guys have questions. Maxine, yes, I will post this recording on our website, and if you guys would like, I can share the slides with you once we're finished with this call as well. Okay, I will go ahead and send out the slides to all the subrecipients that we currently have, and I will try to see if I can make that available on our website too. Well, thank you guys all for your time and for your participation in this. I know it's frustrating and it's not information that we want to hear, but I do appreciate your patience and your understanding and all the questions that you have for us. Please reach out if you have any further questions. We are happy to help with as much as we possibly can. And we just thank you for your time and hope that you guys have a great rest of your 2022. Thank you.